RWBY is an American anime-style series created by the late Monty Oum and produced by Roosterteeth, who is most known for the long-running series Red vs. Blue. The show centers around Team RWBY, composed of Ruby, Weiss, Blake, and Yang, Ruby's older sister, who navigate their way in the world of Remnant as they train to become better huntresses to help defend the world of Remnant from monsters known as Grimm, as well as crime syndicates. Most of the characters have an ability called a semblance, that is basically a superpower such as turning into rose petals to escape and polarity. There are loads of other characters who have an impact on the show other than RWBY herself, which helps not only build character depth, but also does a great job at world building. When I talk about the show, I will discuss the volumes as a chunk or by themselves to dissect the different phases the show has gone through, both good and bad. At the end of each segment, I will assign each volume a grade as I do with my other reviews. And spoilers for every volume here on out, so spoiler warning, don't say I didn't warn you. Volumes 1 and 2 focus on Team RWBY and Team Juniper, made of Jean, Nora, Pyrrha, and Ren, as they try to figure out their place in the world as well as realizing who they are and what they want. The main characters are all enjoyable and they stay likable throughout the entire series, except the villains for the most part. RWBY herself is a very interesting character at first, as she is just an innocent little girl who wants to do good by fighting monsters along with these other hunters who have much more experience than she does. Weiss is your typical princess darling who has had all the fortunes of being in a rich family, so she has to learn to adapt with others who weren't as fortunate as her. Blake likes to mainly keep to herself, which keeps her very interesting as not much is known about her in the very beginning. And Yang is a girl who is not afraid to get down and dirty with anyone. Volume 1 and 2 feel like a high school drama, as the show takes place mainly at Beacon Academy, one of the schools that train hunters and huntresses. They have a light-hearted tone to them, as there is plenty of comedy in between action and touching moments between characters. Easily, the coolest aspect of the show is the action scenes, as they look cool and the animation works very well with it. Not everything is in glorious detail, but the wide shots of the fights make them feel very immersive, and they are just downright fun to look at. The tone works well due to the animation, as it isn't amazing, but it works for what the show is going for, being mainly lighthearted. The animation got slightly better in Volume 2, as well as the tone becoming more serious as more threats arrived, as well as the characters realizing more about their place as hunters. The characters encounter themes of family names, more than meets the eye, being more than what others perceive you to be, and faunus rights. The faunus are basically humans with animal-like features like tails or cat ears. They are mistreated, and it is revealed that Blake is a faunus, which sparks tension between her and Weiss, as her family's company has mistreated faunus in the line of work of mining for a material known as dust. Dust has a somewhat important plot within these two volumes, as it is an energy source used mainly to power weapons, and it is being stolen by the villain Roman Torchwick, who is easily my favorite villain. Although his motives aren't directly clear at first, he makes up for it with his fast-moving energy and quick wit. And his sidekick Neo, who doesn't talk but has a cool character design as well as a cool fighting style. In terms of other characters, there is Penny, who at first is a weird and mysterious girl who turns out to be a robot. She struggles with not being a real girl and how others would perceive it, but RWBY, telling her that what's on the inside mattering more, makes her feel more confident around the others. Professor Ozpin is the headmaster of Beacon Academy, who serves as the wise sage who offers advice as well as being shrouded in mystery with what exactly he is hiding from the students involving the future plot. Jean is actually one of my favorite characters. Although he doesn't fight as cool as the other characters, his motivations for him wanting to continue to fight make him a downright enjoyable character. Pyrrha is easily one of the most experienced fighters out of all of them, but she lacks the confidence to tell others how she exactly feels. Nora and Ren are basically there for comedy moments, and although the scenes they have together are pretty cute, they aren't the most fleshed out characters just yet. Volume 2 introduces the new villains of Cinder, Emerald, and Mercury. Much in the same vein of Roman Torchwick, their overall reason for being bad isn't entirely clear, but they make up for it with their unique fighting style, cool character designs, and energy for the most part. Overall, I love these first two volumes. 1 is a good start for a show, and 2 is a good step in the right direction. With my issues very minimal within these volumes, I think they are both worthy of an A-. Monty sadly passed away during the production of Volume 3, which caused the delay in the release. But even without him, this volume still proves to show that RWBY could become an entertaining and much more compelling series. Volume 3 focuses on the Vital Festival, where the different kingdoms of Revenant and their schools come together to compete in a fighting tournament, all the while a threat from Cinder and her companions threatens the school of Beacon. What I commend this volume for is the risks it takes, as they couldn't have happened in the previous volumes due to the show still setting itself up. The biggest improvement is the animation, as it is a huge step from the previous volumes. There is so much more detail in every aspect as more of the settings and characters are shown, especially in the action scenes. The action, while not as cool or exciting as the previous volumes, are still very fun to watch and provide the same amount of entertainment. The pacing in this volume is much more slow than the previous volumes, as there is a lot of new characters presented as well as new plot points being presented that have to be explained. The tone is now more serious than before, as the show is much more plot-driven, with threats feeling much more drastic. There are more political themes aside from the personal themes, and they work well with the new character of General Ironwood, who wants to protect the people at all costs with his military, but is going about it in a way that makes the people feel scared. The new characters of Crow and Winter also add more complexities to themes. Crow is Ruby and Yang's uncle, who is a hunter that assists Ozpin and Ironwood in sniffing out the bigger threat. Winter is Weiss's older sister, who she looks up to as she knows how to use her semblance proficiently as well as separate herself from the troubling family and make a name for her own self. The villains, Cinder, Mercury, and Emerald, are given some backstory as their purpose of causing chaos for a higher power is revealed, and when it starts, the shit hits the fan. It begins with rigging the tournament and having Pyrrha accidentally kill Penny in a match and revealing to the world that Penny is a robot from the kingdom of Atlas, causing distrust between the kingdoms. Pyrrha then has to receive powers of a maiden who is one of 4 women who have specific magic powers to protect an artifact from the villains. Pyrrha is then killed by Cinder, who is revealed to have the powers of another maiden. She kills Ozpin as well, and these deaths are very impactful as you can feel the impact it has on the other characters. Yang also loses her arm due to a new villain, Adam Taurus, who has teamed up with Cinder to help take down Beacon as he leads an organization called the White Fang, who looks to overthrow humanity and bring justice to the Faunus. The White Fang was around within the past 2 volumes, but their impact didn't feel as big as it does now. Adam looks cool and he fights cool, but his line delivery seems very awkward and makes him seem to be an edgelord.
But I understand, because all I want is you, Blake. I will make it my mission to destroy everything you love.
As Beacon falls, RWBY unlocks a power only people with silver eyes have that shoots beams of light from them. She defeats a giant grim dragon that threatens the school as well as injuring Cinder. Team RWBY is separated as they all go back home to deal with their own problems, while RWBY ventures out with the remainder of Team Juniper on an unknown journey. Then, the unnamed threat behind the chaos is revealed with a very menacing design that makes her interesting while a clear cause still isn't defined. This volume is very enjoyable with a new art design, a much more clear emphasis on an overall plot, and a troubling new start for the characters. Although not better than the previous volumes, it is another step in the right direction that makes the show much more serious. I will give this volume a B+. Now comes the downfall and the point in the show that made me lose hope for the series. Volume 4 focuses on RWBY along with Jean, Nora, and Ren traveling to Haven Academy in the Kingdom of Mistral, while Weiss, Yang, and Blake remain on their own to find themselves and escape the dangers from before. Crow watches over RWBY along her journey as well. Also, Salem, the unnamed villain from before, is shown to have a group of others along with Cinder to help achieve her goals, which are still very unclear, thus making her seem very uninteresting along with the others in this volume. Also, Professor Ozpin is somewhat reincarnated as he is in the head of a new character, Oscar, who is a farmhand who desires more to his life. Much like the last volume, a lot is presented as Team RWBY is separated and the show jumps back and forth between many plot points. While I like the journey that these characters are going through, such as Yang having to deal with the trauma from the fall of Beacon and losing her arm, and Weiss having to return home where she doesn't want to be with her dysfunctional family, this volume is very boring as the pacing is slow and not much happens besides the characters realizing more about themselves. An improvement this volume has over the last is the art style and animation. Every volume looks much better than previous volumes, and although I prefer the original animation style, the newer one is much more reasonable as it fits well with the more serious tone of the newer volumes. The action has a lot more detail in it as there is much more going on with larger settings, and as cool as it is to watch, they don't hold a candle to the volumes before. They are more slow, but still are very cool to watch. My biggest gripe with this volume is the dialogue and line delivery. Everybody talks so much more slower than before, and whatever they feel, they say, instead of letting the audience figure it out for themselves by showing instead of telling, despite it being pretty obvious with what a character feels. The fast and exciting energy is now replaced with the boring and uneventful plot. Although the characters learn more about the past, the maidens, and themselves, not much happens. Nora and Ren are given a nice and cute backstory, but it doesn't really add much to them in context of the present aside from being related to the situation of losing hope and seems a little too late and only seems to serve as a reason to have emotions towards a specific grim creature at a specific location. That being a creature that wrecked the hometown of Nora and Ren as kids. The only good villain in this volume is Tyrion, as he is the only villain to do something at least, and even then he seems like he's crazy to distance himself from the other villains. Still, a cool and interesting looking villain. The other villains have the issue of talking slowly and trying to sound intelligent and not having a clear reason for being there. Some backstory is given where Crow explains to Team Ranger/Junior about the maidens and their importance with specific relics and not much more than that. While rewatching this volume, I had initially given up as I was bored beyond tears as nothing was happening of value. Upon finishing it, I don't dislike it as much as I had before, but it still doesn't help that this volume is very boring, and I will give Volume 4 a C. Volume 5 is just a mess, and there's no other way to put it. I have the same issues with Volume 5 as Volume 4, but just incredibly enhanced. To get positives out of the way, the animation is better and the action scenes are still somewhat enjoyable at times. This volume along with 4 feel much more cinematic and make the show more serious, and that's all I can really applaud. All of the characters finally reunite, but it seems too late as although the episodes don't jump around from character to character in completely different locations as much, the volume is still very boring, and the pacing is even much more slow than Volume 4. The dialogue and line delivery is still very troubling, and scenes go on for far too long where everybody's feelings are explained despite being obvious as to what they are. Salem's goal is still very unclear, and she, along with the other villains, are still very boring. Cinder is still okay though, she's still very interesting, and her lust for power really makes her an interesting character for the most part. Watts is given nothing to do as well as Tyrion in this volume. And we're supposed to care for Hazel as he wants to kill Ozpin because of his sister being trained by Ozpin at Beacon Academy in the past but killed during training. That's it. No flashback, no episodes to set it up, not even a picture and a photo album to look at. It really is explained as simply as that during the final battle, and it really has no emotional weight to it. That's not good character development, that's just lazy writing. Ilya is also very boring, as she is fighting with the White Fang because she is scared and doesn't know what else to do. She also has a crush thing on Blake and uses that as a reason to want to kill Blake and her family because she didn't like her back like the way she liked Adam. Adam is also wasted as he is given not much to do as well. He is there to say some more edgelord lines and be underused despite being very OP in the Black teaser that preceded the show. Raven is cool, but I just wanted more of her as she does bring an interesting point of not blindly following orders as the teams have been doing for the past volumes. But I did find it obvious that she was the Spring Maiden and not Vernal, who is another boring character that I didn't care for. The final battle that takes up the last 4 episodes is way too long and has many dumb moments that couldn't have been avoided. The characters that fight will clash weapons, say a line, have a cliche comeback said back to them, and repeat for the next characters that fight. Even though there are matchups that should be interesting due to past conflicts with each other, they are too short and it would jump to different characters during fighting. Underwhelming doesn't even fully explain how I felt during the fight, as well as the entire volume. Cinder is defeated by Raven, and she unlocks a vault that holds a relic, the Lamp of Knowledge, which Yang takes as she confronts her mother who had abandoned her as a child. As she drops her hatred for her mother, she takes the relic so that the hunters can take it to Atlas as told to by Ozpin. After initially finishing Volume 5, I didn't care to watch the next volume as I had lost any interest in continuing the show. This volume had, and still leaves a bad taste in my mouth, and is easily my least favorite volume out of all of RWBY, and I will give this volume a C-. I wasn't going to continue RWBY as I was severely disconnected due to Volume 5, but I had some friends tell me that Volume 6 was really good, as well as what they had seen of 7 at the time. So after nearly 2 years of not watching anything new of RWBY, I had decided to watch Volume 6 in my quest to rewatch RWBY, and I can say that Volume 6 was very surprising in a good way. I really enjoyed Volume 6 as the plot is more focused with the characters being together yet again. This volume follows our heroes on a quest to take the Lamp of Knowledge to the Kingdom of Atlas, but trust in Ozpin is lost as they discover the truth behind his everlasting battle with Salem, revealing that she cannot be killed. They learn through the lamp about the past and how Salem had cursed herself in her desires to bring Ozpin's past self, Ozma, back to life as they were lovers. She was cursed with immortality as she tried to pin the gods of life and death against each other, which doomed humanity and had to start all over again. The gods left behind 4 relics of human nature, and if they were brought together, the gods would return and judge humanity to see if they are worthy to live. So Ozma, reincarnated as Ozpin, is cursed with being reincarnated over and over again in hopes of stopping Salem from gathering the relics if she could find them and have humanity destroyed. So the heroes are pissed at Ozpin as he doesn't have a clear plan in stopping Salem, as she can't be killed, and he leaves them, not talking through Oscar as he did before. They decide to take the lamp to Atlas anyways in hopes of devising a plan to defeat Salem. They also meet Maria, an old huntress who is revealed to have had silver eyes, and trains RWBY to master her ability. She's a great character as she is a wise old woman who is also very funny, and was a hunter known as the Grim Reaper. I just want to say that this volume did a fantastic job in the storytelling aspect. The episode revealing the past was presented well, and it made me finally care for Salem as a character. Even though the pacing was slow, it was still entertaining as the dialogue was much better and the characters didn't seem to be saying exactly what they were feeling, just enough to get it by to the others. All of the characters have so much more internal struggles going on with the past and how they plan to continue to move on. The animation is always getting better, but the addition of some 2D elements such as weather effects seems off-putting at first, but becomes natural after some time as it has always been a factor in the show, especially during the action scenes with weapons clashing with each other. The action is one of the biggest improvements in this volume. The action is fast but doesn't zoom past you. The action scenes are fun, large, and have a lot going on. This volume really saved RWBY for me as I was drawn back into it as I tried newer things, making episodes seem depressing and scary at times with its occasional hope for the future. I loved how the characters are deciding to follow their own path and aren't getting the lamp to Atlas because Ozpin told them to, but because they want to in hopes of devising a plan. A minor gripe I had with this volume was the villains of Adam, Cinder, and Neo. Adam is in this volume to traumatize Yang and Blake, and they have a cool fight near the end, but he seems only to be there to be an arc for Yang and Blake to get through. They were shown in the previous volume to not care about the past as Blake didn't chase after Adam to fight him, and how Yang didn't fight Mercury when he tried to stop her from entering the vault. I only see Adam's appearance as a way for the final plan to get to Atlas to fail, as well as making an excuse for Blake to finally be free from Adam's torment, which isn't a bad thing. It's just that it was already established over the last 2 volumes. But his entire character isn't a fight for equal rights anymore, or in this case, domination over humanity. His character has been chipped away to be the creepy ex-boyfriend, which makes him very dull. All of that potential, gone. But Cinder isn't dead and Neo has returned. They team up to track down RWBY and kill her as they have their own gripes with her. For Neo, that is Roman dying in Volume 3. I like this team up, but I don't like how they are pushed off so much to the side and probably have about 5 minutes of screen time throughout the entire volume. But if they were there more, it would probably ruin the pacing of the show going away from the heroes, which made the volume work. All in all, I really enjoyed this volume as it was exciting and really made RWBY special again. My small gripes are just some of the villains and certain characters giving speeches for the sake of giving a speech to sound hopeful, but a very enjoyable volume that made me like RWBY yet again. I will give this volume a B+. Volume 7 picks up where 6 left off as our heroes arrive to Atlas. Upon arriving, they fly down to the slum city of Mantle that is protected from the Grim by the savior, Penny. Seeing Penny made me happy as she was a great character, but it ruins the emotional scene of RWBY reacting to her death in Volume 3, as well as the consequences that came afterwards. Also, the other characters barely react to it, which makes it feel not as special as it should. But still, it's nice to see her back with her exuberant energy. Our heroes are arrested by an elite force of Atlas hunters who, along with the frightened General Ironwood, enlist their help to ensure the construction of a new communication tower for all of Remnant to use, as well as expose Salem to the world in hopes of uniting everyone to stand up to her. But Watts, as well as Tyrion, are sent in to cause trouble, and a huntress, Robin, is running for a seat on the Council of Atlas to help the people of Mantle during the troubling times through both legal and illegal means. All of the new characters are interesting enough to propel the plot, but the most compelling has to be Clover, the leader of the Atlas Ace operatives, as he contrasts Crow with his semblance of good luck as opposed to Crow's semblance of bad luck. He serves Ironwood not blindly, but loyally, along with the rest of the Ace operatives, who don't seem as interesting as Clover and only seem to serve as similar foes for Team RWBY to fight at the end of the volume. Cinder and Neo return for some screen time as they want to steal the lamp, kill RWBY, and kill the Winter Maiden hiding in Atlas to find the Staff of Creation. The few scenes that they are in are enjoyable, and they add more of a threat than the chaos that was already commenced. Watts is finally given some character besides being the guy to sound intelligent, as he was an Atlas scientist who helps Weiss's father win the election, as well as frame Penny for killing people at Robin's election party, in order to turn the people against Ironwood. Just to say it, since I brought it up, the action in this volume is very similar to the volume before, except much more gruesome and violent. These action scenes have plenty of weight to them, as, except the fight with Team RWBY and the Ace operatives, there are plenty of emotions going on where it makes me care for the reasons of the fights. Getting back to the characters, Robin isn't a great character, but she's not terrible either. She's just a character who wants to help the people, and that's basically it. But she is entertaining enough for me to not hate her, and she provides some cool action in her fight with Crow, Clover, and Tyrion. The most surprising element of this volume is how the Winter Maiden's powers are dispersed. Weiss's older sister, Winter, was supposed to take the powers of the Winter Maiden, but as Cinder tries to steal it, Penny ends up inheriting the powers for herself. Penny and Winter have a conflict with each other about choice, as although Winter doesn't want to become the Winter Maiden, she knows it's the right thing to do, and when Penny was with the maiden in her dying breath, she decided to accept the powers, as Cinder was close to taking them. I'm really excited to see where they take Penny, as this was very unexpected. I also really enjoyed what they did with Ironwood, as he was losing trust with the main characters as they were keeping secrets from him. He is a much more broken down character than he was in the earlier seasons, and he looks to accomplish the long-term goals and ignore the smaller issues in order to hopefully avoid the larger problem at hand. This is revealed as he wants to abandon the city of Mantle as well as the people they have been protecting from the Grim, as he wants to use the Staff of Creation to lift Atlas and be out of reach of Salem. The volume is left off with the cliffhanger as Salem is seen with an army of Grim in the real world ready to attack Atlas. All in all, I really enjoyed this volume. Great action, great emotions in the action, cool new characters, and an interesting plot with great pacing to not make the volume boring. I am excited to see what happens in Volume 8, and I will give this volume a B. One thing I didn't mention throughout this video was the soundtrack, and that's because it's really good. All the music throughout the entire 7 volumes not only works for the show, but is enjoyable music on its own. Some songs only work with context to the show as it revolves around specific characters and their struggles, but then you'll get songs like Dream Come True, Bad Luck Charm, like Morning Follows Night, One Thing, and so many others that are just bangers that sound like music that belongs on radio, when radio was a thing that I used to listen to back then. I know that was a lot to take in, but I have had a lot of this on my mind and wanted to use this opportunity to analyze a show in a deeper sense, especially a show as rocky as this one. I really like RWBY, but that doesn't mean I can't hate it at times because I want this show to succeed, as it has potential that was once tapped into, and is slowly gaining it back again to be a truly amazing show. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button. If you really like it, share it with a friend, share it with other people who like RWBY and want to hear my thoughts on it. I'll be back with more enjoyable content like this soon. Thanks so much, and bye.